Welcome to Your Brand Amplified, the podcast where we interview marketers, publicists, and brands to learn their stories, what makes them tick, and tips and tricks that make a difference. This is Annika Jackson with Your Brand Amplified, and I'm super excited to have Dan Peterson here. Dan describes himself as a husband, father, entrepreneur, and the founder of Flip Switch Social Media. Dan, I love that because I also always start my bio with, first and foremost, I'm a mom. That is the most important thing I will do in my lifetime. So that has to come first, and then everything else follows behind. So
I always say that I do it in that order. That's
fantastic.
A lot of times my bio line will say, husband, dad, entrepreneur, in that order. So
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And I lived in Chicago. I was in the club scene in Chicago over 20 years ago. So quite a while ago, but I love that you're also a musician. And like myself, you have had a very windy journey to entrepreneurship and also have been a serial or multi-entrepreneur. So let's start with your story. I think you have a really interesting backstory. You come from a long line of entrepreneurs. So please talk us through that journey of, how you stepped into that and what that looked like for you.
Yeah, I definitely had that background. I grew up in a small town, central Illinois, 4,500 people, something like that. And my parents, aunts, uncles, grandparents, everybody were entrepreneurs. They own different businesses. And I always tell the story that I basically lived and grew up in a Ben Franklin store, which was
I remember
parts
that.
of the country. Do you remember those?
I grew up in Lawrence, Kansas. So that was, we had one. And
yeah, that's like their home. Well, not their home base, but somewhere out there, I think. I don't know. But that's what I did. I grew up in that retail environment. And from when I was really young until I was, probably in high school.
Ooh.
And then everybody, like I said, they're all entrepreneurs. So when I started Flip Switch, as of this time that we're recording, coming up on 12 years,
amazing.
It was based on my background with small business and knowing the struggles and all of the issues that my parents and family went through. So I started an agency, a digital agency that works with those small businesses to help them at a price that they can actually afford instead of some of these agencies that charge exorbitant amounts. So that's where I come from, and that's what I do.
Yeah. How did you get into digital and social media as the medium that you wanted to provide?
Well, so the way it originally worked was we were a web design company. That's how it all started for the first 2 years. And social media was still very young. There was Facebook. I think there might have been Twitter or some aspect of it. But it was very much a solution for small businesses that needed help. So the website design stuff that we did was really interesting. And I have to tell this story because it's kind of crazy. So the guy that initially was doing websites for us was a comic book illustrator, like DC Comic. I think he actually worked for DC Comics, if I'm not mistaken. So he would hand draw the websites, and then he would overlay the digital graphics on it and then turn it into a website. So the initial product that he was showing the business was a hand-drawn, and it very much looked kind of like comic book style sketching, but very high end. And it's like, this isn't scalable, right? I mean, you can't have this guy drawing 1,000 websites. So we scaled it. And then all the websites that we were doing, problem with, if any web designers are out there, they know it's a lot of cash flow issues because a lot of times they pay when they purchase the website and then the other half when they finish the website, and there's nothing in between. So you're constantly having to bring on your clients. And then right around that time, social media hit and everything was going that direction. I saw the writing on the wall. So we started helping small businesses with that. And we completely did away with websites a decade ago. And that's all we've done now since is basically social media and other business consulting and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, and what I think is so interesting about that is I was going to give you a gold star because I love integrated strategies. And so many people have their website and their social media are not congruent. Like they might use different people for them, or they might use a team that doesn't really know their brand voice. So can you walk us through the process and kind of like what your ideal customer is for your business?
Yeah, and we do have a website partner that we use right here in Chicagoland that's very much congruent with what we do.
Awesome.
But you're right, though. A lot of businesses don't do that. So we do the social side of things, and we tie it all in with digital, and we provide when I say all the social media stuff you can think of, we do it all. So the posting, the creative, the design work, the posting, the monitoring, we respond to our clients' comments and reviews and questions that they get online. We do it for them. So it's completely off their plate.
Nice.
that's half the business. The other half of the business is for the people that have somebody, either the business owner or a employee or somebody that does the social media. We do coaching, monthly coaching for them. So we basically give a blueprint to the person who's doing the social media. They do it for, the month. At the end of the month, we get back to them and rinse, repeat month to month. And it's killing it right now. The clients that we have doing the coaching, I think, is probably the direction that our firm will move as, the younger generation gets older and they're more savvy with social media. So, but for right now, we do probably 80% is actually doing the social media for the clients.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at.
Yeah, and it's so hard, I think, because things are always changing. So there's new platforms. So which ones are going to be the right ones to be on for depending on what your product or service is?
For sure.
Some people want to take advantage of the trends, like the TikTok trends, right? But that might not be best for their business. So it's great for them to, on one hand, have somebody who can just do it for them. But on the other hand, also have somebody who can advise them on, is that really what you want to do? Why don't we take a look at this? This might have a better ROI for your business.
Right. There is a lot of that. As a matter of fact, I actually had the same conversation with somebody yesterday. They were wanting TikTok and they were wanting Snapchat and all these things. And I'm like, your Facebook and Instagram accounts are non-existent. You haven't even touched those and you're already wanting to do TikTok and Snapchat and who knows what else. And it's just, let me say this, their audience is not even the type of audience and service, they're a service provider of a certain industry. I don't want to say too much about them, but they're just not the type of business that is going to do as well on TikTok and certainly not on Snapchat as they would on Facebook and Instagram. So first things first, we're going to get them on that. And then once that's built out and they're doing well, then we can start adding other, platforms and channels. But yeah, we hear that a lot. You're right.
Yeah. But I also agree with you that like the younger generation, they're all learning, especially if they're going to university or getting a master's, they have to know a little bit of all of the things. So it's almost as if we're going from people being really specialized to, yes, I have a specialization or this is what I like doing better or most, but I still need to know how to play in all these other areas.
Right. And, the thing with the younger generation coming up too, there's a big difference between knowing how to take a selfie and post your own personal stuff on Instagram as there is to a complete business strategy for a small business. And so we, years ago, I told my wife, actually, I said, I've probably got like 5 years before that upcoming younger generation is knocking on the door of our clients wanting to do social media for them without the experience, just because they're so used to it, they think they can do it. And sure enough, it was about 5 years to the year when I said that to now, here we are. And we are seeing this businesses saying, oh, I got a niece, nephew, somebody that lives with me that can do our business social media. And we always say, okay, give it a shot, and they usually do. And then they come to us about a month later and they're like, well, they posted once and then we couldn't get them on the phone because they were out hanging out with their friends. And so we've seen it go that route. But yeah, there is a big difference between that age group and what we do as an agency, as you know.
Oh, yeah. Well, and then also speaking about that engagement aspect, knowing exactly how to use the right brand tone of voice to speak to your audience. And that's something I also see a lot of when people hire family members or cousin, or even sometimes I've worked successfully with people overseas and not as successfully because I'm like, okay, you just ran this through ChatGPT because they're superlatives and that's not the way I speak and that's not my brand voice. Because as you know, as business owners, we also have to have a presence, whether we like it or not. And it can get tiring to try to figure out what to post. So sometimes we need to hire people too to help us keep on track. So I love that you're offering that service and that coaching. And I agree with you. I think that's the way a lot of things are going nowadays with people wanting to understand enough, get the coaching. They may come back as clients eventually, right? For the full service. Right. But at least they have a little bit better understanding of what the process is and how much work actually goes into it in detail.
For sure. And a lot of businesses have somebody, if you're a business owner listening to this, you have somebody on your staff right now that spends at least an hour or two a day on their phone. Whether you see it or not, they're doing it. So you might as well task them with some social media stuff, let them become content creators for your business, and maybe incentivize them to do it. Say, hey, look, if you put out, 5 videos this week, I'll give you $25, something like that. And now you've given them incentive to do it. They're doing what they know and love, and they're on their phone, which is what they're doing anyway. And then they're doing it for your business. And as long as they stay within the parameters that you set and say, hey, don't go off the rails here. Don't be doing stuff that's going to harm the brand. But if they stay within those certain parameters that you set, it's a very, very value-driven proposition that you're giving them. You're providing this, we're giving you cash. That's half a tank of gas or whatever. I mean, I would have done it if I was in my 20s and I was working somewhere. We didn't have social media when I was in my 20s, but if we did, I would have been over the moon to do that. I'd be like, yeah, give me some cash, So we found that this coaching program is really doing well for that reason and a lot of others. But yeah, it's interesting.
Well, I wanted to ask if you had any, between growing up in entrepreneurship and then starting your own business, was there a point when you did go work for somebody else and try the corporate life and went, okay, this is definitely not for me. I need to go and do my own thing?
For sure. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff I've done. I've worked in more industries. My wife and I joke about all the time. I think I've had probably like 20 or 25 different jobs. I don't know, like a ton of stuff. I tasted a lot of stuff, which is what I recommend young people do now. But yeah, so from the time that I graduated high school, I did go to college. I was pre-med / business, a couple years in each. And then I ended up working in the pizza industry, and I worked for one place and then I worked for Papa John's. And when I was working for Papa John's, I was doing really well managing, and they wanted me to be a regional manager over the Midwest. And I was like 23 at the time, I think, something like that. And I could have gone that route and worked like 70 hours a week for $40,000 a year or something. It was not great pay. And instead I quit and I started a rock band, and I did that for 5 years while I worked odds and ends jobs. And that was a blast. And I will never regret doing that. I think that, to my earlier point, I think everybody in their 20s and even maybe early 30s should be tasting and doing as much stuff as they can, because you won't regret it. Like nobody wishes on their deathbed that they'd worked more or not done a rock band type of thing. So I did that. I had a lot of fun and some success doing that. And then I worked for a few different businesses. The one I didn't mention that gave me a lot of perspective on business was the lumberyard industry, building materials industry. So in high school into early college, for like that 5-year period, I worked for the local lumberyard in my town, and then eventually Lowe's, and then back to the local lumberyard under a different name. And I managed that yard, all the deliveries, all the stuff that was going out when I was like 19, 20 years old. And looking back, that's crazy to me now. I feel like that's such a kid time in your life. And here I am like dealing with millions of dollars in materials and 5, 6, 7 people under me and all this stuff.
Wow.
And it gave me my first taste of management, really, which led to a lot of other management opportunities down the line. But yeah, it was interesting. I grew up in retail and then managed retail, then did some restaurant stuff. So I got all this knowledge, so to speak, that I gathered when I was young. And then when I started the agency, it's like, I know you. I know where you've been as a business. Now let me help market you. And it gave me such a leg up. And I'm not bashing, well, I do bash college a little bit, but I'm not bashing like marketing degrees and things like that per se. I'm just saying that I would rather have that 6, 7, 8 years of real life experience of working in these industries instead of a degree that, the kids never worked a day in a retail or restaurant or whatever.
Yeah.
So it does help a lot. It really, I think, gives Flip Switch an edge, to be honest.
Yeah. And I'm there with you. I actually grew up in Kansas, lived in Chicago, and I was the club promoter in the club scene in Chicago back in the late 90s. I'll just leave it there.
Don't date yourself, right?
And worked for a marketing firm. And then I went to college early, was very ambitious, like it sounds you were in business and pre-med. But then I ended up dropping out to work, and I was making and at that point, when I went back to school, I was making 6 figures already, working in magazine publishing, in marketing.
Wow.
And then I said, I just wanted to go back for my own edification, right? Ironically, now I do teach grad students at the top communications program in the country at USC. But the reason I get to teach there is because of my experience, and I'm working in the field. I'm a professor of I'm sharing the practical application of the theory and the things that they're learning from tenured professors, perhaps.
Right.
But
good for you.
But you have to have that experience, and you have to bring in the lived experience. And that's, I
think so.
And it adds so much for your clients. It really does. To your point,
Sure.
I love that. Now, you mentioned not wanting to work 70 plus hours a week as a manager, regional manager, but entrepreneurship can also be a slog. So how do you, managing being a husband and a parent and an entrepreneur, how do you figure out those boundary lines and what to give more energy to at any time?
Oh, it's difficult. I'm not even going to say anything else. It's hard. And I don't think people really realize how hard it is. There's that joke that entrepreneurs are the only people crazy enough to work 80 hours a week so they don't have to work 40 hours a week, right? And that's very, very true. But I will say this, we've been very fortunate and blessed to be able to have my wife up until the last year and a half. She was a stay-at-home mom and an amazing mom. I mean, just rocks this house. When she was gone, I don't know, last weekend or something like that for a few days. And I had the whole crew. I've got 3 daughters. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't know this is what you were doing on a day-to-day basis. Because she hadn't really gone away 3 or 4 days like that for probably several years. And so I'm lost, completely just lost without her here. And she got home, but I was like, I appreciate you so much. And I just need to tell you that because I definitely do. But to your point, I think the difficult thing about being I call it work from home parent, right? So I've had offices outside of the house. Around COVID, I got rid of all the offices. I wasn't using them anyway. And all the people with me are remote. So it's what am I even doing? So my home office has always basically been my office. And so here I am working out of the house for all these years and my kids see it. And the struggle is that to this day, 14, 12, and 5 years old, 14 and 12-year-olds still have a hard time recognizing that when I'm on my phone or when I'm doing stuff that I'm really working. I'm not just on the gram, posting and doing Snapchat stuff. I'm working. And it's been a difficult point of contention in our house where they see me, they're like, well, you're not listening, you're doing this and that. And I've had to really be mindful, and I try to do this as much as I can, but really be mindful about separating work from business. I mean, separating work from life and from the home life, because my business is based now basically out of my house for all practical purposes. So it's difficult. It's not something that I admit that I'm good at, because I'm not. I think that I'm getting better. And I think that I've over time gotten better at letting them know and separating it too, going to a different part of the house and actually not trying to work in the areas of the house that the rest of the family is in all the time, because then it gets very muddled. And that's probably something that I still need to do a lot better job of. But that's tough. Entrepreneur life is not for everybody, for sure. And that is why very few people do it as a percentage.
Right. But I like the fact that you are a husband and a father and an entrepreneur and having this conversation, because I think it's a conversation that obviously with women we bring up a lot, but we don't hear from the dads in the room, and how it can also be a struggle for you. And we need to acknowledge and lift that up, that you're facing the same things. I work from home. My office used to be a very nice desk in the living room where I had a nice view. And I moved it into the garage, and good thing you can't see my background right now because I still have a lot of zhuzhing to do, right? But I had to create that separation. And luckily, my daughter's 15, so maybe your daughter will now start to ask a few more months and she'll start to say, oh, what are you working on? Because my daughter's like, well, what do you have to do for work today? What are you working on? Who are you meeting with? Cool. Yeah. And it's really cool when you see that switch where they know and it can acknowledge, yeah, well, you're doing your homework. I am working still. And that we can have this time where we're doing something together and really it's our time together that we're investing in. But it is difficult to manage and figure out, how do you make sure that everybody feels they're getting the love and care they should for it, right?
That's it. And especially, I have 3 daughters and they're different ages, but different phases of their life, I guess is a better way to put it. So the 14-year-old's in high school, the 12-year-old's in middle school, 5-year-old just started kindergarten. So we're in all these different places. And now, I'm driving to pick one up and drop the other one off, and I'm supposed to be on a phone call with somebody. And now my wife is working. She's the director of special needs program, which is amazing. And so she's doing all that, and it's added another layer to our lives. And it's not easy, but you adjust and you adapt. And I think the biggest thing that I'm learning, and I'm not saying learned at all, I'm very much still in the early phases of this learning process in my mind. I think it's really important to let your kids know what you're doing and know how difficult it is to do it, and not try to hide behind some facade saying, oh, we got it all under control. No, I'm busy. Mom's busy. Like we're working our butts off and we are stressed out sometimes. And this is, like not making excuses for it, not saying this is why we might be frustrated today, but saying like, this is real life and not putting it all in our back pocket and walking around acting like it's not going on. It's better in my mind anyway to get the girls involved when we can, but definitely aware that here's what's going on. We're busy. You're busy. Yeah, we didn't, talk as nice as we should have today, that kind of thing. And like, just being a little more real about it, I think is probably a better path instead of just acting like it's not happening.
Yeah. Well, and as a social media expert with daughters, how do you handle that? And how do you manage their screen time, their social media time? I have a daughter who is a self-proclaimed nerd. She wants to get her PhD in neuroscience. She already knows where she wants to go to college. Like,
amazing.
So she does YouTube and she has an Instagram account just to check when her art class is doing a contest or something. But she doesn't really use social media. She doesn't like to do TikTok dances or any of that stuff. So it's a little different. I'm like, okay, I'm in communications and you hate communications.
Right.
That's so it's interesting to parent a child like that, but it's also a blessing in many ways.
Oh, I'm envious. We held off to kind of answer your question, your point there. We held off way longer than most parents. My kids didn't get like an iPhone or anything until I guess like 12, 13, something like that. And social media, as far as like Instagram and Snapchat and things, my high schooler is finally now on Instagram and Snapchat, and only Snapchat because a lot of groups that she's a part of and things only communicate through that. They don't text, they snap. It's how they message back and forth. So you got to kind of take the good with the bad and hate it because, the messages disappear and you can't really monitor it like you can other platforms, but it's almost a necessary evil nowadays. And I say that, like you said, as the owner of an agency and somebody that makes his money on promoting social media, is very difficult as a parent to see what's going on. It used to be, I think, that I was more worried about the content they were seeing with like TikTok videos and some of that stuff. They're still not on TikTok, by the way, but some of that, the content that they might see, and let me rewind here, it doesn't really matter because the same content is on Reels on Instagram and on Facebook and on YouTube Shorts. So you're not really avoiding anything, parents, if you're listening. TikTok is just one of 4 different channels that they can find this on. So if they've got any Reels or any YouTube Shorts or any access to any of that, and YouTube Shorts isn't even a social media platform, you just go on YouTube and it's there. So you don't have to like download the app or anything. So they're seeing it anyway. But I think one of the issues was that with some of the stuff that they're involved in school, they're forced to be on these platforms, first of all. And second of all, I was worried about what they were going to see on these platforms. And it's really more about, now I'm realizing, what other people can say or do that you can't monitor. So like bullying and things like that we didn't grow up with. We had real bullies, like in the schoolyard. You get punched in the face, you punch back, that kind of thing. Now it's digital and it's all over the place before you can even blink. Yeah. So I think the concern for me now is not so much that they're going to see somebody doing something that, we don't really approve of necessarily, but it's more about, hey, like this person, Sally, can say something to you and do something and affect your mental stability before we can even see that it's going on. And now this could go on for months and months and months, and you don't even know it as a parent. So that's the difficult thing for me with it. It's not so much like, we're not like prudish people. It's not like, oh, these people are dancing or doing something. Like, you're hearing way worse in school, I promise. The thing is like, what can we do as parents to try to keep open lines of communication with these kids so that if something's going on, they actually want to tell you, and then maybe you can step in from a side angle and deal with it. It's tough. I don't have an answer. I get asked this all the time. It's probably like, I call it the golden question now. I get asked and I don't have an answer.
And you'll have a multi-million-dollar business.
That's it. Well, and so I'm going really heavy into AI. I have learned as much as I can about it. I'm studying some like free Harvard, 10-hour free Harvard classes online about it, like everything I can do. And I'll tell you this, that scares me way more than anything going on in the world right now, to be honest. There's so much fake stuff that people are going to be able to create in the next year or two. I mean, they're already doing it, but I'm talking like kids. It's only a matter before it trickles down, a matter of time. I mean, so they're going to be able to make these pictures that look like, for example, let's say it looks like my daughter doing something she would never do, or with somebody. I mean, like, it's so real. I've seen examples of this already. It's so real, you can't tell the difference between what you're looking at and what you're not. So I'm not even talking like politics where you could have a head of a state saying something that you can't prove or disprove. I'm talking like in the family level, it's going to be real crazy in the next, 2024, 25, 26. You're going to see some crazy stuff coming out.
Are you ready to take your brand to new heights? Join the Brand Amplifier for Entrepreneurs program. Learn how to build, elevate, and amplify your brand with a comprehensive 10-module course. Learn more about it and other ways to implement our strategies at fullcapacitymarketing.com. Click on EFCM Learning Hub for more information. Can't wait to help you amplify your brand. Interesting. Yeah, I haven't even thought about AI from that perspective because I usually use it on the PR side, or I'm coming up with like some taglines for a campaign for a client for, after looking at their brand analysis, or I want to finesse a blog post that I'm writing a little bit. So I'll put in what I have and then see if like a couple sentences flow a little better than what I've put in. So I haven't even thought about the other implications.
There's so much a part of our lives, so intertwined. In the next 1 to 5 years, it's moving at such a rate right now. We're talking right now towards the end of 2023. It is moving at such a fast pace that people and governments and nobody, literally nobody knows really what is happening. I heard the other day, like, for example, if you call into your bank and it uses some kind of voice match for proof of who you are, they only need 3 seconds of your voice to create your voice on AI.
Oh, wow.
Well, then it can just be you. And the banks had no preparation for this as of right now.
Oh my God.
So like nothing is ahead of the game. It's all chasing. And that's why people like Elon Musk are like, put a pause on it. Like, let's stop and let's wait until we get things set in place, but that's obviously at like the grand scale. I'm talking just at the family level, the things that are going to be coming with filters, and not even filters. It's more like just going into an app and creating a picture.
Wow.
You could take a picture. I could take a picture of you, put it in the app, and the app then generates a different picture of you doing something that you would not approve of, or you're somewhere you weren't supposed to be, or you're, with somebody, or it's on and on and on.
Wow. Definitely something for us all to think about and keep monitoring. So
it's wild.
I'll be interested to see, in the next 6 months, what you have to say about this after you've had another deep dive into this world. So I feel like with entrepreneurs, I see two kinds of people. I've been really thinking about this. I see the ones who are just grind. I don't watch TV. I don't do anything but work because I'm going to make millions and millions of dollars. I'm going to become a billionaire. I mean, you think of Alex Hormozi, for instance. I love his podcast and what he does.
Sure.
He and his wife are so dedicated to that. And how are they going to get to $1 billion? And then the rest of us, I'd put both of us in a different category of, well, we also have families and we prioritize that. And that helps us realize that it doesn't matter how much money you have at the end of the day. If you haven't poured into these relationships and made our humans like the best people they can be when they go out into the world, that nothing else matters. So I would love to hear about your perspective of what makes a business owner successful, and how do you define or quantify or qualify success?
Great question. I love this topic. So when I talk to people about this, especially now that, I'm this old man at 44, right? Like when you're 20, you think 44 is old. I think I'm still quite young. But if I was telling my younger self this, because back then I was very ambitious for money, like drive, ambition, build a big business, do this and that. But that is not what I want my kids to do, and I would be a hypocrite if I was doing that myself and not preaching something different to my kids. So what I talk about now is how this whole country and the world in general, but especially Western civilization, has really gone off the rails ever since social media kind of came in, and people are looking at everybody else's highlight reel on Instagram or whatever, and not understanding that everybody's got these struggles. And sometimes, more money, more problems type of thing. You're making money for the sake of making money and you're putting everything else aside, like friends, family, travel, doing other fun things. So I do talk about this a lot. And I think that parents in general, what I'm trying to do is tell my kids, I'm trying to really preach like gratitude and perspective and things like that, where, like there's a little boy that just is 10 minutes down the road from us here who battled cancer and just died the other day.
Oh my God.
And to me, that's like, I can't even imagine, right? Like, what do you even do as a parent, let alone like, I don't know. So I sent it, I literally screenshotted it, sent it to my daughter, my 14-year-old, and said, this is why I found gratitude and perspective as part of happiness. And I'm getting to your point here in a second. It comes full circle, I promise. It's a happiness play that doesn't come from money. It comes from having quality people around you, having a fun life. I mean, stress-free because you're not worried about the almighty dollar and all of that. It comes from a different place. So I think people more and more now are realizing this. I think that I've heard recently that a lot of younger people, like in their teens and 20s, there's kind of a movement to get off of social media a little bit and actually expand and do things in the real world, which is cool. And I think that for myself personally, yes, I work hard. I do a lot. I think that there's always work-life balance you have to kind of consider, but I enjoy working. I enjoy doing what I do.
Right.
So for me, working isn't like some people that have the 9-to-5 grind where they wake up Monday morning and hate life. I hate that. I hate that whole Monday morning thing where people are mad at Mondays and all this. I hate it. I think that when you put things, going back to my point, in perspective and you have that mindset, it makes work a piece of cake, really. And I'm not saying I'm stressed to the max all the time. I'm a terrible example of what I talk about, but I'm working on myself as much as anything. But I will say that when you don't care as much about that stuff, the financial stuff and things, and you care more about building time with your kids, going on vacations. Like I take a lot of time off. I work hard, but we travel and we do a lot of stuff, especially before this last year and a half when my wife was still full stay-at-home mom. Like we did a lot of stuff all the time.
Yeah.
So I'd rather do that than spend 80 hours a week in an office, whether it's building something for myself or working 40, 50 hours a week for somebody else. Like none of that really matters. I said it earlier in this conversation, at the end of the day, at the end of a lifetime, rather, nobody lays on their deathbed and wishes they'd worked more or been to more meetings or stuff like that. It's all perspective.
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate you sharing that. So speaking of one of my next questions, which is about the future of social media. So I've heard you say two things. One is AI and the fact that it can take away this privacy that we hear all these companies saying, oh, we're instituting more privacy laws, more of this, more of that. But then I feel like that's going to be a way to kind of create this other level of dystopian lack of privacy.
Right.
Even not
100%.
us. And on the other hand, I heard you say that the younger generations are kind of trying to live their lives in real life instead of just online. Mm-hmm. So I'd love to hear your input on other trends or things that you think are going to be coming around for social.
I think I love this. You're right on the money here. I think that there are two sides to this.
Mm-hmm.
One, I think that, yes, younger people are starting to get away from feeling like they have to be on social 24/7. I think that ship has sailed, and I could be proven wrong. We could see what happens in the next 6 to 12 months. But I think that it's starting to sail at least, where people are starting to realize that there's more to life than posting 1,000 selfies a day and all this stuff. And I've talked to personally a lot of younger people recently, and I've heard lots of interviews with people, and they're all kind of saying this, like people are getting out of this rat race kind of mindset with social media where all the 20s and 30 somethings feel like they have to be on it all day, every day. Even a guy that I know right here in Chicagoland, he owns an agency like mine, more video oriented than mine, like video production company. And he just recently said, I saw a post on Facebook from him that he just took like 3 weeks off of Facebook. He's not on it very much anymore. And this is a guy that owns an agency and he's probably 28 years old, something like that. Oh. And he's like, I don't need to be on it all the time. And I'm just seeing more and more of that. So I think that that's one thing that I think is going to continue to trend. And I think that's for the positive. Even though I make my money on social, like businesses need people to be online. I think at the end of the day, it's a positive, net positive. What I also think, the second thing that I think is going to happen, and this relates back to AI, I think we're going to see it over the next 3 to 5, maybe 7 years. A lot of job creation and a lot of dissolution of jobs. I think a lot of jobs are going to go away. I've heard numbers as high eventually as like 100 million jobs could be lost because of this. Not nationally, but globally, I assume. Well, it'd have to be, yeah. Otherwise, it'd be like half the adults in America. So anyway, yeah, the push for AI and this and that is great, and I'm all behind it. Like that's why I'm all in on it. I want our agency to be driving it. You know, we use it with our clients for generative purposes heavily, but I think from a global perspective, it has the ability to really relieve people of a lot of mundane tasks and workload stuff, and they're going to parlay that into more time with friends and family. I don't see it any other way. Everything I've studied about it, everything I've read, heard, this and that, I see it as being, hey, I don't have to write this report for my company because it just happened like that, in 2 seconds. I typed in what I want and it generated it, and there it is on the other end, a full 10-page report, all the stats, all the data, blah, blah, blah. Is that good for that job? I don't know. But then again, that's to my other part of that point. But I think from a point of view as a society, I definitely see AI becoming a thing where it alleviates so much time and energy on all the little day-to-day stuff that we do. And it's not that we're doing it. It's more like some of it's being done by something, some machine or something, but it's doing it better so that we don't have to follow up on it. And I think that there's angles there where it's going to shave 10 minutes here, 20 minutes there, an hour a day here. And between the next 3 to 5 years, as that rolls out and happens, now we've got all this time, hours a day potentially that we can put back into friends and family and things we enjoy doing, travel, whatever it is. Yeah. And and it's ironic because here's the thing, it's going hand in hand with this new kind of societal change with younger people not being as interested in all the social platforms and kind of pulling back a little bit. And there's a push now I've seen on social with trends of like, travel and things with younger people they're still posting on social, but they're out in nature and they're like going places and doing things that I think 5 to 10 years ago, as social was built up, it wasn't really happening. I think everything was really fake, pictures of them with cars and this and that, but now they're like out in nature and doing things. Yeah. So I think as you get more time on one side and you can apply that to this new mental structure that we're seeing roll out with people, I think it's the perfect fit, and those two things go together. Next thing you know, we've got a happier general society. I'm hoping anyway. I'm hopeful for that.
I love that. Sign me up for that society. I'm there.
Right. So, I just don't want to get so easy that nobody's got a job, Some people have to have purpose.
I do feel that there is still going to be a need for people to monitor AI to help it navigate as a tool, because it's not going to be able to completely replace the human voice, at least not hopefully in 5 to 7 years.
No, we're nowhere close to that. I think people get it confused where a lot of people hear AI and I've seen this on TV. It's, a lot of people talking about like Terminator and, the robots are coming and all this. And while I think that there is some truth to some of the robot stuff in a good way in the future, I don't think we're anywhere near that level of problem. It's more about where can we implement these programs and these algorithms and these different data sets that just immediately pull whole sectors in a different direction or eliminate jobs in a bad but a good way. I think there's a lot of tasks now that are just mundane remedial tasks that could be done away with, and other jobs will be created that are moving in a different direction with allowing people to be free and not doing something they necessarily hate. I don't know. But there's still a lot of jobs though that are going to be forever, right? Some things, like the garbage man, I don't see that being something that they can automate the truck and all that, but you can't have something pick up the trash can, dump it, and put it down at perfect every time. There's got to be somebody in that truck going with it, because I know my trash can, they got to get out and do it manually half the time because I got so much crap out there. So there's always stuff, plumbers, electricians, things like that. Absolutely. That's why I talk a lot about the trades, which that's a whole nother conversation. But
that's a lot of my day job work is with workforce development and adult basic education. And it is thinking about what are the stackable credentials you can get, the certificates you can get, like the training that you need to get good apprenticeships or good jobs that are the jobs that won't be replaced that we desperately need right now because there's not enough people filling them.
Right.
So, yeah.
That's good. I like that. It's cool
Yeah.
that you do that. I mean, that's the workforce development thing. That's cool.
I'd love to hear when somebody comes to you to talk to you about being a client and you're doing an analysis to decide if you're going to work with them or not, what is one of the biggest mistakes that you see people make when they're trying to start their own social media journey?
As a business owner?
Business owner. Yeah.
I think not understanding what they don't understand. Like if you're 50 years old or even 30 years old, I don't know, and you're starting a business and you didn't grow up with this or you're not good at it, why are you trying to take it under your wing and do it without knowing? And this just came up. It's so funny you're asking this. 2 days ago, I had a conversation with somebody and this was what was going on. They started a new business. They were trying to set up all their pages and they're asking me, hey, what apps do you use to create content? What do you do for this and that? And I'm not saying don't learn it. I definitely think social media is something that business owners need to get into and learn. But at least in the beginning, if you don't know what you're doing, hire somebody to either teach you or do it for you, one way or the other, right? So I see it all the time over the last decade plus where business owners think that they can wear all the hats and they don't know, especially the ones that are my age, 40 something and older that didn't grow up with an ounce of internet or anything else. It's like, I'm a dinosaur in this. 44 years old for a agency owner that doesn't, didn't grow up with it. It's like, what are you doing, dude? Yeah, what's happening? Why are you not surrounding yourself with younger people, which I do? But no, it's something I think that if I had to say the one thing business owners neglect is not outsourcing enough stuff. Trying to be the accountant, trying to be the social media person, trying to do sales. I don't know how many business owners I know that are in a sales-based industry. I'm talking like retail, things like that. I'm talking like legitimately like outselling a service or something that couldn't sell anything. And they've got the key job in the company. They've got the business development position as the owner, and they need to find the capital or find a way to bring one person on that can actually sell something because they would grow so much faster. You would quadruple their rate of growth in the first 6 months if they would do that, but they don't because they make excuses. I don't have enough money to hire somebody, or, it's a pride thing or an ego thing. And I mean, my gosh, I could probably fill this room with stories about how many business owners I talk to that need to outsource something and they just don't. So that's probably the answer to that if I had one.
Yeah. Thank you. I agree with that. And it's not easy to make the transition and hire the right people. And I think sometimes we make mistakes in that process, but then you learn and you grow and you hire a better person next time. So,
for sure.
Yeah. Now, your website is flipswitchsocialmedia.com and people can go on it. And do you have things that they can do to analyze where they are in their social media journey?
So everything is so customized that we do because every business is different. Even if two restaurants are a block apart in the same town, they're completely different businesses. One has this level of management experience and the other one has this level of marketing experience, and one has good product and one doesn't. I mean, there's so much stuff that plays into it. So the best thing that I tell people to do is go to our website, fill out the contact form. We'll reach out to you. We'll have a conversation. I'll throw this offer out there. Anybody listening to this who's, if you feel like Anika and I have provided any value at all, then I would be happy to give you an hour free consultation. That's valued at a few $100 usually on our end. And I would be happy to do that for any business owner that's listening to this to help you decide what direction to go. It's not a sales pitch. It's simply giving you some knowledge and some value so that you can maybe take the right next steps in your business. So yeah, that's the best thing. Just fill out the contact form and we'll have a chat.
Fantastic. And is there anything that we didn't share that you want to leave people with today?
Oh, that's a tough question. I think in general, don't take it too seriously. I think that is the best advice that I've learned over my last 15, 20 years of owning, managing, or operating businesses is at the end of the day, none of it really matters. I mean, it only matters as much as it does to your, you're loyal to your employees, you're loyal to your clients. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. None of it really matters. It's all just the game that we all play while we're alive. And it's just work. It's just whatever we do. I will say this. Let me rephrase this. find what you love to do, especially this is for like the teens and 20 somethings if you're listening, and a lot of adults actually. Find something you love to do that you would feel like, it's that old saying, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life type of thing. Find what that is and find a way to monetize it. And that's it.
Yeah.
And then live within your means so that you're not stressed about money if you're taking a pay cut or whatever to do this thing. Like one thing for me, if I could really do anything right now, this is funny, I would get a metal detector. And I really want to do this. I swear I'm going to do it. I thought I was getting a metal detector for Christmas last year. Wife, if you're listening. But I want to get this metal detector, a good one, and make a YouTube channel and go out and just find stuff and make the whole channel about finding stuff and see if I can build a follower count that is, monetizable. And at some point, you never know with the way things are nowadays in social media and YouTube and things, you can make a lot of money if you have enough views and enough followers. So who knows? If I did anything right now, I'd shut everything down and just do that. I think that would be an amazing way to spend my time.
Yeah.
I'd be so entertained doing that I'd probably never do anything else again. So find something like that. Find your metal detector, people. Go out and do it.
And my last question, which I don't think I prepared you for, but I always ask if people have a favorite quote, mantra, family motto, verse, or just other words of wisdom that help you get through the day.
It's the James Dean quote, dream as if you'll live forever, live as though you'll die today.
There we go. I love that. It's a great way to bring everything around to perspective and balance and thinking about what's really important in life. And I love that for you, it's your family and then entrepreneurs.
100%.
People. So thank you for bringing that to the world. I really appreciate it, Dan. And thank you to all of my viewers and listeners for coming back for another episode of Your Brand Amplified. I'll be back again in a few days with another amazing expert. And we'll have all of Dan's information in the show notes so that you can reach him and learn more about his services.
Thank you very much.
Want more? Check out amplifywithannika.com or follow me on socials at amplifywithannika.